Okay. So good morning, and the recording has been started with cloud itself, right? So luckily, maybe they cleared the space. Okay. So today, we're going to talk about something called as data protection. So yesterday we discussed about what? We discussed about virtual machine. We discussed about the PaaS services, if you remember, right? So in the virtual machine, we discussed about how the horizontal scaling works, how the vertical scaling works, right? As well as we've discussed with the app services. So when we discuss it with the app services is basically a blue-green environment. That means I don't require an infrastructure. So Azure will give the platform as a services. I will implement my coding. I can keep the coding on Bitbucket or GitHub or local repository or wherever. Then I will bring that and I'll upload it, right? And continuous integration, continuous deployment, you will do through the deployment slot. That's what CI/CD process, right? So, and there is something called as container instances. That is a lightweight where you put the application, a lightweight application, and you have something called as container apps. That is a basic orchestration like your Kubernetes. That is, it's not fully orchestrated, but it is a replacement. I mean to say, just a not a replacement. It's just a alternate solution for your Kubernetes, right? So today we are going to discuss about data protection. How are you going to protect your data? That is very important, right? So when it comes to data protection, it is also again small topic. So in this module, we are going to discuss Azure backup, virtual machine backup. So how are you going to take care of this? Now, when it comes to backup, so before we get into the backup, I just want to give a little example of Azure backup. So when it comes to, let's say, a scenario, see, always go with the scenario. Why? Because scenario, if you know, you can always think about okay, what exactly the scenario, how exactly it works, right? So when it comes to the on-premises or anywhere in the Azure, right? So let's take an example. Your company, so let's say this is my on-prem environment. So let's say this is a strategy of my on-prem or anywhere. On-prem scenario. Let's say your company stores a critical information. Let's say this is my Azure files and this is my on-prem data, on-prem critical critical compliance information. It's, see, on-prem or cloud, doesn't matter, okay? So on-prem or Azure. This is on-prem and you have Azure. Let's say you kept all the compliance documents, information, let's say on Azure files. Hope you know about file share, correct? File share, we spoke about in the Azure storage, if you remember, right? So now you must ensure whatever you shared, you have uploaded, you have to ensure that this particular file share, right? You must ensure this content, whatever it is, can be recovered if there is a data loss. Make sense? Or let's say sometimes corruption. So in order to avoid this, the scenario is here, you'll keep the data compliance or your Azure compliance information stored in the Azure files. And you must ensure that the content can be recovered in case of data loss, right? Or what you have to do in order to do this, the remediation is you must configure backup and restore policy. Right? So what this exactly does, when you configure your backup and restore policy, that meets your company's regulatory needs. Correct? Do you agree with this? So the moment I have configured my backup and recovery, so that will fulfill my company need, right? So this is how the scenario comes in. Whenever you have critical data and whatever you have in the on-premises or the Azure, sometimes we keep in the Azure files and make sure that that can be recovered if any data loss or corruption, right? So this is how you have to keep the scenario. So always work on the scenario. If you're an architect, there's no much difference. Only thing is you have to think logically. Okay, if I want to protect my data, what exactly I have to do, right? So that's where my Azure and backup comes in. Now, when it comes to backup service, so today we are going to discuss about files and folders. What is Azure backup? How are you going to configure your virtual machine? So when it comes to Azure backup, so I will go directly because here, if you remember, they are given what is Azure backup. But when it comes to Azure backup, we're going to talk how you can implement your backup, how the Azure backup works, how you can implement your backup center. So before we get into that, how does, so when it comes to data protection, it is nothing but your backup, guys. Backup. Now keep in remember always, when it comes to backup, what is Azure backup? So what they're doing is, it is coming as a, it offers as a backup services, right? Which as incremental backup. Any idea what is incremental, guys? Incremental backup. So first what you do, you take the complete backup and you keep it in the Azure, and it will be a first time incremental backup. Now, when it comes to this, always remember, always remember the first top level resources. When it comes to a backup, when it comes to migration, when it comes to protection, always consider recovery service vault. A big service in Azure that is called recovery service vault. We call it as RSV. Have you heard about this, guys? Anytime? RSV. So what this RSV stands for? Recovery Service Vault. The top level resources that you have to create, right? For all your backup requirement. So that's the top level resources, because see, the moment I create my RSV, that is more than enough. It will take care of everything, right? So it means that, let me get into this. So RSV, again, I'm going to give the information. RSV is nothing but a huge space on cloud that can store n number of data. It has no limitation, guys. It has no limitation on how much you can store. I can store n number of data. There is no restriction, right? Only thing is you have to pay per GB, that you know already. So storage cost is already a per GB. So as per 2018, you have to pay per GB cost, right? When it comes to costing. And this is the advantage of using RSP is it is globally replicated. It is globally replicated. It is globally replicated. It is highly available. It is extremely scalable. It is encrypted, right? And it is very secure. So when it comes to RSV, this is how the things works. So the best part of RSV is it is globally replicated. What do you mean by globally replicated, guys? See, everything is region specific. If you remember, what are the services which is not region specific? Can you name one of that at least, guys? We discussed this. Huh? What's that? Oh, who's that? Can you confirm, guys? So, Azure Active Directory is a global service. You have something called as Traffic Manager. You have something called as Front Door. You have something called as DDoS protection, if you remember, right? So the best part of RSV is it's a globally replicated. It is highly available, right? Extremely scalable. It is encrypted and secure. So when it comes to the RSV, right, it can take a backup of workload regardless of wherever it is connected. See, for example, it can be connected to your Azure. It can be connected to your Azure, right? It can be connected to your on-prem, or let's say it can be connected to your GCP, Azure, AWS. It can be connected to your on-prem environment. So let's say the workloads can come from anywhere. So let's say it can be from Azure. It can be from any, let's say AWS, GCP, no problem. You have this, you can protect your on-prem environment. You can protect your on-prem environment as well, right? So when it comes to Azure, when it comes to on-prem, when it comes to a GCP or whatever the cloud, it can be associated with my RSV like this. Now, when it comes to Azure, it can protect when it comes to exclusively for Azure. So when it comes to Azure, it can protect Azure virtual machines. It can protect Azure file share. It can protect SQL Server in VM. It can protect your SAP HANA in VM. So when it comes to Azure, it can protect only this, guys. It can protect only this, right? But when it comes to, we are not going to discuss about AWS and GCP, but we will discuss about on-premises here. So when it comes to on-premises, it can protect what? Files and folders. It can protect files and folders. I hope you have heard about Hyper-V virtual machines. Hope you have heard about VMware virtual machines. Hope you have heard about SQL Server. Hope you have heard about a SharePoint. Hope you have heard about Exchange. Exchange. Hope you have heard about System State. System State. And you have bare metal recovery. So that means I can protect not only Azure, I can protect my on-prem environment, I can protect my AWS environment. And in the on-premises, Azure will protect. Azure protects your files and folders, Azure virtual machines, VMware virtual machines, and all this, right? So when it comes to your on-premises, you have two environments. If you have heard about, let's say, Hyper-V, you've heard about a VMware. Have you heard about Citrix, guys? Citrix. So all this I can protect because this I can bring this Hyper-V as we have mentioned in the on the right side, Hyper-V. You have something called as vSphere or vCenter when it comes to your VMware, and you have your Citrix environment. So I can protect all this from Azure. Now, when it comes to this is both basically this on-prem environment, it is centrally managed because you have Hyper-V, which is on the SCS. When it comes to your VMware, it can be a vCenter or vSphere, right? But when it comes to Azure, it is not a centrally managed. So that's why it can protect only this much, right? So, so in order to protect all this environment, so what I have to do first, guys? I have to prepare something called as RSV. And once I select RSV, I can configure all this and I can take a backup. Make sense? So when it comes to your Azure backup, what is this Azure backup? You're going to install on the Azure. So Azure inside, see, this is your on-prem environment. If you want to protect your environment, you're going to install the agent for your on-premises environment. So when it comes to Azure Backup Services, you have recovery point management, storage management, data tiering, resiliency and highly available, multi-factor authentication, MFA, access control, policy management. You have monitoring and reporting, and how it can built in all this. It can protect all this, right? It can protect all this when it comes to Azure. So how this backup works? This is what the backup works. So backup center, you have your backup policy, you have your metrics monitor, like see vault stores, copies, recovery points, and backup policy. That's what it does. Backup vault and recovery service vault, which we have go through the recovery vault that you will come to know. So backup policy define the data source, storage vault, and backup schedule. The backup center provides a single unified management experience, right? When it comes to your backup center, see, when it comes to Azure, right? You have your, the moment I get into the portal, you have backup vault. You can see here, create a backup vault. You can create a backup vault, store entity in Azure, that also you to organize your backup, right? So here, backup vault name, and you have to enter. So this is your backup vault. But we are going to see recovery service vault. A disaster recovery and data protection strategy keeps your business running when unexpected error occurs. So that's why this gives you a clear idea of what exactly the RSV. So RSV is the disaster recovery and data protection strategy keeps your business running when unexpected event occurs. It can be anything. It can protect your Azure, it can protect your on-premises environment, it can protect your any environment, right? So when it comes to RSV, see, this is backup center. If you go here, it gives you a backup center. Change completely. This your preview, still it is not come up. Backup center. This is your business continuity center. How are you going to take care of your business, right? How are you going to take care of monitoring Azure policy and protection? So here it comes up with the policy, right? You can see the protected items. So I'm going to show you how exactly the RSV comes in picture. So when it comes to RSV recovery service vault. So first thing is you have to create a vault here. So I'm going to create a vault prod-RSV. Prod- or RSV. So what I'll do is RG prod-RSV. So redundancy. What do you mean by redundancy, guys? If in case something happens on the backend, how my data will be restored back. If I use GRS, what is the GRS, guys? It's for disaster recovery. When it is locally and zone, that is region specific. But when it comes to geo, I hope you remember this, right? And cross region restore, I can enable it, right? If you want to encrypt, enable. And you have something called as encryption. So there are two types of keys. One is use manage Microsoft managed key. That means Microsoft gives you the key here. Or you can bring the key and store it in where? Azure Key Vault, right? So I'll use management vault, and you can enable immutable storage. See, guys, this is out of subject, but still I want to make sure that what is immutable. Immutable is nothing but, for example, let's say you work in a HR department. Now you have to take care of all the employees, correct? when it comes to employees, you have to make sure that none of them will access some documents and see, for example, your offer letter, appointment letter, or a salary slip that should not be modified. So what we do, we keep it in the storage, we enable the immutable storage, right? Same thing in the Azure. In the Azure, you have in the storage called storage immutability. And in the backup also, you will store, enable the vault. That means nobody can delete it. If I say enable this, nobody will delete that particular files. Networking, allow public access. I'll just do the public access first. In the real time, you'll deny the public access and you'll go to the private access. And I'll create it. So when RSV is created, the look and feel is, they have changed it, guys, now. Because earlier there was no vault properties, there was no the look and feel, they've changed it. So the moment you do this, meantime, what I'll do, I will create a machine in the Azure. Let's say for consider I have two machines. One is, I'll create three machines. One is, let's say, on-prem VM. Okay, so I'm going to create an on-prem VM. I'm going to create on-prem VM. I'm going to keep it as 2016 server. And let's say VM admin. So my intention here is to take the backup. That's it, nothing else. How exactly it works. So when you're creating your VM, you have to select your. So today I'll add the additional disk also. I'll show you how to add the additional disk as well. And networking, I will select the default one. It's okay. Or I will create prod-vnet. I'll use the same range. Okay. And it's okay. I'll enable this so that it will get deleted and created. So before, you have option to enable your backup also. Let's say advanced. Here you can see enable user data. No. Monitoring. Can you see here? Enable configure monitoring for your virtual machine. That we will see in the monitoring. Management. You can enable Azure backup. When it comes to Azure backup, you can see this, but I'm going to do manually, not here. I'm going to create the machine and I will show using the RSV how you can take the backup. Meantime, let it create. So I'll see whether my RSV is created. If you see RSV, it's a big repository here, guys. So when you see RSV, you can go to the protected items. You can see the backup items here. Can you see the backup items? You can back up your Azure virtual machines, backup server, your backup agent, your. So when it comes to agent, so before we get into the topic, we'll just see that. So let's say there are two types of agent. Guys, I'm not going with the PPT because PPT they've given here and there. right? So when it comes to two types of agents, guys, Azure Backup, that is called Mars agent. What is that? Mars agent. There is one more called Azure Backup Server. So you should understand when to use my Azure Backup Mars agent. This is for your on-premises, guys. When I have to use Azure Backup Server, that is called MABS. So when to use Mars agent, when to use PAS, sorry, MABS. So when you have a requirement, called let's say you have a requirement you want to protect when it comes to Azure Backup as a Mars agent. If you want to protect files and folders only, then what do you use? You're going to install Mars agent. No, I want to take care of only the files and folders. Then what you do? You'll use Mars agent and it will be associated to recovery service what? It will be associated to recovery service what? So what is this recovery service what? That is the backup storage. So where you want to use this? So when it comes to your protects, if you want to protect your files and folders on on-premises, this is we are talking about on-premises only, guys. Then I will use files and folders. But when it comes to Azure Backup Server, that's called MABS. That means what? Your files, folders, volumes, VMs, applications, workloads. So all this I can take. That means when it comes to, let's say, I want to take a backup of Hyper-V. I want to take a backup of Hyper-V, right? VMware machines. So those things, VMware VMs, right? If I want to take this, I have to install something called as MABS. And this is associated with same thing when it comes to backup storage, RSV, Recovery Service Vault, and locally attached disk. So it has locally attached disk as well and recovery service vault. So when you go to the recovery service vault, you can see Azure Virtual Machine, Azure Backup Agent, Azure Backup Server, DPM, Azure Storage, SQL Database in Azure, and SAP HANA. When you go to the replicated items, what are the machines are replicated? For example, if you want to replicate your on-premises environment, let's say you consider as migration, right? So you can replicate your on-premises migration. And you can see the backup policy. You have what kind of backup policy you have. You can add that policy, right? And you can see the backup infrastructure. So how many backup agent I've installed? What is the backup server here? What is the management server, backup server management, protected servers, right? This is your on-premise agent. Now, when it comes to your backup, so I can take a backup of what? I can take a backup of Azure. I can take a backup of StackUp, HCI, and on-premises. When it comes to on-premises, Azure will protect files and folders, Hyper-V machines. For example, if I select Hyper-V machines, so I have to prepare an infrastructure. So what I have to install, guys? I have to enable system center, that's called SCOM or System Center. If you're using System Center Data Protection Manager, or if I say yes, then you can download the DPM available on the System Center subscription, install the Azure Recovery Service Agent. If I'm not using System Center Data Protection on the on-premises, you have to download what? MABS. So the moment you install the agent on the on-premises, or let's say I want to take only the backup of Azure or files and folders. So let's say I want to take a backup of files and folders. What I do is I will download the agent here. So I will download the agent. I will show you on my machine itself. I'll download the agent, and what is that? The moment I have downloaded the agent, I'll install the software. Azure Site Recovery Management. This is called MARS, M-A-R-S. Why? I want to take files and folders backup. If you have a requirement files and folders, then you'll go for what? MARS agent. So I will just go, and meantime, I will download the key vault, the vault credential. So if you're not using for 10 days, it will expire. So I'm going to install the agent here. I do not want to get updated. So once it installs, so this is MARS agent, guys. If you're planning for your on-prem environment, I will show you how to take the backup of Azure also, but how you're taking care of the on-prem as well, right? So I'll show one by one so that you will understand what is this MARS agent, what is this site recovery, it is a recovery service vault. So recovery service vault is a huge thing, and it's a top level resources for your backup services. If you want to take any backup, you need to have a top level, right? And now it is asking to proceed to the registration. I've downloaded the software already, the vault. So I've downloaded the vault in the downloads, and you can see that vault, and I have to attach the vault. And can you see here the backup vault is installed on the prod RS. We can see that ES2 subscription ID and the vault expiration time. And next, so if you come across here, can you see here? If I'm not using for 10 days, it will expire, right? But I'm using it right away, and I have to generate a passcode. So, and enter the keyword to save the passcode. Let's say welcome at 1, 2, 3. Finish. What is this? Okay, can you see, guys? If you want to save the password to keyword, I don't want that, right? I will save it in my local system. So I'll say that desktop. If you want to store, save passphrase securely to Azure Key Vault, then it is recommended because it is saving in my machine. But in the real time, I have to save it in the Azure Key Vault, right? In real time, you'll store it. It's your wish. Again, the requirement is your wish, right? But the best way recommended by Microsoft is keep that in your key vault. So now what is happening is I'm installing my agent on my machine, which is considered as on-prem machines, because see, this is out of the machine, right? It is not part of your Azure environment. So my system is not part of Azure environment, right? So that's why I'm installed on my machine. The agent is getting installed. So meantime, I'll go back to my recovery service vault. I'll go to RSV. I'll go to something called as, so let's see, when you comes to site recovery, you can see, guys, for virtual machine, for VMware, physical machines, if your machine is connected, right? For example, you connected Hyper-V host. The host will be visible here. The host will be visible here. The host will be your whatever the VM servers, virtual machine, VMware solution, VMware machines. Everything it will be visible if you bring. If you go to Azure, what I'll do is I'll go to the backup again and I will add Azure virtual machine, and it has the subtype, the policy. If you want to take a backup, multiple backup per day, or I want to go for a standard one-time backup, up to 30 days operational period retention policy. So I can go for standard or enhanced one. So it's your wish. So I'll go for enhanced only, and I'll go for backup policy. This will be your frequency, or I will go for standard. I'll go for the backup policy and when to take the backup, right? So you want frequently daily, you want frequently weekly, or when you want to take the backup, when you want to take the backup. So that you have to decide the backup strategy here. So frequency 2 p.m. Retain instance recovery snapshot for 2 days, retain backup up to so and so, right? I'll add the virtual machine here, and that virtual machine should be part of your. So it will validate the virtual machine. So channel policy not supported for trusted. Okay, so that means you have to make sure that you'll go for enhanced one. So the standard policy will not be applicable for trusted virtual machine. How I'll know the trusted virtual machine? I'll show you that. So you'll enable the backup for your virtual machine without installing any agent here, guys. Right? You're configuring through the RSV as a backup item because it can protect. Now, if I go back to a virtual machine, when I'm creating a virtual machine, you might have seen something called as trusted here. So trusted launch virtual machine will not support for your standard policy, right? So then you have to go for this. So I will create one more example, VM2. So I'm not going to go for all this. So here, if I go back to the networking or management, you can enable the backup here. I will just I can enable enhanced one, guys, or I can go for standard and view policy details. So this is all the policy details. This is your customer requirement. What is the retention policy you want? So I'll just go for create new default policy. And I'll just review, and I'm adding directly to the backup agent, right? So I'll just go for VM admin. So we attach how many devices now, guys? 3 devices. One is on premises, one is Azure. I've included my one more virtual machine with the standard policy because I want to show that it should support for trusted one, correct? So it should support for not trusted one. It's a standard one, right? So enhanced security policy, standard security policy will not work for trusted virtual machine. That's why I've created non-trusted virtual machine. Now, when I go back to my RSV, recovery service vault, you can see in the recovery service vault, backup items. So now I have to get how many machines, guys? If I go to the backup items, so one virtual machine is already added. But where is my on-premises, guys? So on-premises is getting created. So now this is my on-prem environment. That means I'm using my machine as an on-premises, guys. Doesn't matter wherever, right? So this is my machine, the local machine. Now I will schedule a backup because I've already registered the server to Azure. Now I will schedule the backup. So what kind of backup I'm going to do? I'm going for files and folders. If I'm using files and folders, I have to go with Mars agent. That's what I've installed Mars agent in my machine. If you see here, Mars agent. add the items. So I'll say C drive, let's say user. Let me take a small one, guys. Let me take small one. So here I'll go for only this, okay? I've taken a backup of this one, okay? Now I'll go to the next. Now when to schedule a backup? Because this I'm doing for on-premises backup. You want daily or weekly? I'll say weekly, and weekly every 2 weeks once. When to take the backup? Let's say morning, noon, none. I can do it. Every Sunday, please take the backup, right? Click on next. What is the retention policy if something goes wrong? How to retain the backups? So this is all customer, again customer, right? Customer requirement. Based on the requirement, you will enable the policies. I left it for default. Now, when you go for a backup for the first time, guys, anyone answer it? If I'm going for terabytes, petabytes, first time what I have to take, how to take the backup, guys? For the first time, as an architect, you have to think in such a way that if I'm going for the backup for the first time, let's say if I'm going for the first time, if it is terabytes, what I have to do? We'll order what, guys? Azure data box and store the files, transfer the files and folders to the data box and ship it back to Azure to store in the keyboard, in the recovery or storage. Make sense? So for the first time, you have to make sure that if it is more than a terabytes or petabytes, right? Then go for it. See, if I go for online, so let's consider in this way itself, it's a small file. I'm just doing the online. But think that if the data is terabytes, what you will do? Will you do in the online? Gone. Your network will get choked, right? So always the recommendation is what? If you have data box. So in this case, I'm going for online because a small files, right? And I will finish it. In real time, if it is terabytes or more than that, you are not going to do in online. It will just gone. So I've enabled that. Now you have to back up now. I've scheduled the backup. Now back up now. So it will back up. And when is the retention policy? So to retain the backup, so I will just give this is since it is demo. So I'm backing up now. So I'm backing up my folds and files and folders and taking snapshot of it. So now where it is storing, guys? Whether it is storing in my machine, it is storing on your Azure, not in my machine, guys. Guys, are you getting it? Are you getting it, guys? So I'm storing in where? I'm storing in Azure from my on-premises. So what I'll do, once the backup is done, what I'll do, I will delete the file folder, then I'll restore it back. If I go back here, refresh it, how many machines should come now, guys? Can you see, guys? 2 virtual machine I have put for Azure, 1 backup agent. If I have VMware or Hyper-V, I'll go for backup server. But since I don't have that machines, I went for Mars agent, right? And I can take Azure file also. I can take a backup. I can add the Azure file also here, right? So let me try that also for your laptop. So I'll create a storage account. So I'll go for files. I'll go for other GRS. Okay, let me go for next review and create it. Guys, one by one you have to do in real time. But when it comes to lab purpose, you have a beautiful lab that's called data protection. So how you can protect your data? Same thing if whatever they are given step by step. That's it. So we created a policy, we can all this we have done. So here, the moment my storage account is created, guys. So what I'll do, I will create recovery service vault. I'll go for recovery service vault and I'll go for backup items. You can see all this. I will enable Azure file also here. So now let me go back to my on. Okay, so that is created. So what I'll do, I'll go back to my storage meantime. Say, and since my backup is still going on, so I want to make use of the timing. So what I'll do, I'll go for a data storage, file share. I'll add the file share called Azure file share. Okay, and next backup. So I'll have the enable the backup. Guys, can you see here? RSV, backup policies. So I'll just create, I'll enable already and create it. Okay, so let it create. Now I'll go back to the recovery service vault. I'll go back to the backup items, refresh. So I have to get here one particular. I've already enabled it, right? I've already enabled it. So it will take some time. Let it come up because it should not get an error. Okay. So let it come up because I've already associated it. So meantime, can you see here 125 MB is backed up successfully, guys. 125 MB is backup successfully. Now what I'll do is I'll go back to this is what, right? So let me do one thing, guys. I will delete all these 4 files. Shift delete, permanently deleting these 4 items. Shift delete. Okay, deleted. Now I want to restore it back. What I'll do, I'll go back to my recover the data and this server will go for and restore in the primary region of the recovery server, which is the machine is registered. Individual files and folders. and it will map the drive. What it does, guys? Mount the drive. So mounting the drive, I'm recovering the file which I've deleted. I'm mounting the drive. So now it is recovering that, guys. Recovery is going on, right? Now can you see here? Browse it. And can you see, guys? I've recovered that. I think only I've taken this, guys. I think, see? Can you see, guys? Restore it. So I've restored it back because I've shift and deleted, right? But I restored it back. But do you think that this was stored in the local system? No, guys. This is stored in the Azure. I'm recovering from the Azure, not from the local machine, right? And unmount it. Once the job is done, unmount it. This is how the backup Azure backup works in, and you can open the portal here, guys. You can change the properties here. You can change the properties. You can change the passphrase in case if it is compromised. You can change. You can open the portal here itself, right? You can open the portal, Azure portal, right? And you can see about site recovery. So this is for your on-premises. But how I can take the backup of Azure? So the moment I go back, see, can just, guys, Azure files, it has taken it, right? So now if I go back to Azure virtual machine, so the backup pre-check is done. So I'll go to the view details. Now I will back up the Azure machines. So retail until November. So that is the retention policy, guys. So I'll say that just for lab purpose, right? So I will trigger the backup for on-premises. I'm not going to install any agent for my Azure machines, right? I'm just triggering from the tool itself. But in the on-premises, you have to install the agent. That's called Mars agent if it is for files and folders. If it is for your VM of Hyper-V, VM of your VMware, any other thing, then you're going to install Azure Backup Server, right? So this is how you enable the backup. When you go back to the recovery service fault, in case of backing up, if you want to back up your on-prem, if it is Hyper-V, then what do you do, guys? You'll install the backup server agent, not the Mars agent. If you're using System Center Data Protection Manager, right, then you have to use recovery service agent, right? So the backup is triggered successfully. Make sure, make sense? Now, if you want to protect everything, you protect from your here backup items. It's already protected, right? Primary region, secondary region. Guys, can you confirm me why secondary region showing this as well? That is for the site recovery because I've selected what? GZRS, if you remember, right? So, and you can just do all this. So when it comes to close this, when it comes to your PPT, you can see this is backup center. Backup center, why it is not coming? Backup center. That's called BC, this one, backup center. Protection compliance, Azure policy for protection, protected items. I have to get 2 machines. Why, guys? Because I protected, this is for Azure Backup Center, right? I protected and it is going on, right? But to see your on-premises and other stuff, what do you do, guys? You have to go with the site recovery. Remember, site Azure Recovery Service Vault, right? So when it comes to implement your backup center, single pane of glass to manage your backups across large and distributed Azure environment, right? Data source centric management focused on what you're backing up, right? Connected experience with native integration that enables management at scale. So we have taken the backup of virtual machines. We have taken the backup of your, right? So this is all the virtual machines backup, right? So what is the backup? If you want to enable, if you want to protect your virtual machine data, there is something called as snapshots, Azure backup, site recovery, right? Manage snapshot provide a quick and simple options to backup in virtual machine that uses manage disk, right? Azure backup supports application consistent backup for both your Windows and Linux machines. Site recovery protects your VM from major disaster scenario when the whole region experience an outage, right? So when it goes to primary, if you go back to your site recovery, that means your RSV, there is nothing but your site recovery, right? You can enable the replication for site recovery. You can prepare your VMware. You can prepare your Hyper-V for site recovery. That means if one goes down, what you will do? You'll enable the replication, right? You'll enable the replication, right? So what is this replication disaster between availability zone? Select the resource group, right? Select a resource manager, deployment. So you can go for disaster recovery between yes, and you can select the availability zone 1. See, the region of recovery service vault is the same region. So if you're putting the machine across, you may continue for cross. Please select a vault, right? If you're doing cross, right? Or if you're selecting between your availability zone, then select it. So I'll just select your next, and why it is not coming. I've not selected availability zone, so I'll just select this. It's coming up, right? Right. Okay, we'll wait for that. This is Azure backup. We have taken snapshot, right? Take a snapshot and transferred it to recovery service vault. So use snapshot taken as a part of your backup job. Reduce recovery wait time. Don't wait for data transfer or to finish it. Configure instant restore retention, standard or enhanced. Which one we have done, guys? We have done for standard also. We have done for enhanced also, if you remember. And how a recovery supports? It recovery supports for virtual machine, recovery support for your on-premises, all this. And when it comes to Azure, it supports for virtual machine, file share, your SQL, your SAP HANA. When it comes to on-premises, it will protect several one, right? So when you're creating a virtual, how to take backup your virtual machine, first I've created a key vault, if you remember, that's called service recovery, recovery service vault, RSV I've created, and I've used enable the backup, right? How did I do, guys? Same thing, I just went to my backup. I just did the backup. I've just backup and I've selected the first machine, enhanced it, standard or so and so, right? So the moment you attached it, go to the backup items and go to the virtual machine where you're protected. The second machine, I have not taken the backup. I'll go to the second machine. I'll trigger the backup. I'll select the retention policy where it will sustain. I'll just select this and it will trigger the backup. So ensure that if you want to move the resources from one RG to another RG, if my backup is running, if my RSV is associated, if my recovery service, if my um, express route is associated, those things, if it is there, then I cannot move the from one resource group to other resource group. See, for example, if you go for resource group, right? I will create another resource group. Let's say prod-rg2. If I select east to west or west to west 2, if I want to move the resources from one RG to another RG, that is, if backup is running, will it happens, guys? For example, if I go back here, the RSV, if I want to move the resources to another resource group, I will select the resource group. If my backup is running, will it get associated? So I'll just select. I can move the resources from one RG to another RG, but I'm trying what? If my backup is running, will it happens or not? I don't think so it will happen because it is depend on the resource group, right? We'll see that. So you have seen this, how you can take a backup, how you can replicate, install, and you have to configure. I just did the backup now, correct? So once you trigger the restore option, the backup service creates a job by tracking the restoration time. The backup also creates the temporary display notification so that you can monitor the process. And this is what one slide where I want to, for example, if this goes down, I can restore it from the. So only thing is you have to have a traffic manager. So manages the orchestration of disaster recovery, replicates workloads continuously from primary location to region to the secondary location. Failover to switch to the secondary location, failover, fail back to return to the primary location. If one goes down, you can restore it back. So that is only one, which I have not tried to restore it, but this is not no there, like we don't have lab also. But I didn't try this recovery the from one region to other region. I want to try that as well, but I am not getting the lab. So I will try my best to recover. Sorry, here, not that. I want to restore it from, that is replication. Here you can see. Yeah, this is one replication. That enablement. Okay. Okay. So this is what the replication guys. So for example, this task fifth, click on the create. I've already created. Okay. Select Azure and subscription name. Okay, West US. Okay. Okay. So I have to create one more thing, right? So we create RSV. Okay. So see, can you guys, it cannot be moved, guys. It cannot be moved. Maybe you'll get a certification question. So when backup is running, you cannot move the from one RG to another RG. So I will create one more RSV. That's what they mentioned it, right? So I will create prod RG. So prod RSV2. So encryption, cross encryption, keyword, networking, created. What I'm doing is I'm enabling the replication, right? So click on create, West US. Okay, so yeah. So Are you getting it, guys? I hope you're getting it right. I hope you're getting it right, guys.
Yes.
So what I'm doing here is, so let's say I have RSV and here I have RSV. Prod hyphen RSV, RSV2 east to west to two. So I have VM1 here, VM2 here. Right? Now I want to use my site recovery. If my primary goes down, how the secondary comes in picture. So that's what I'm doing it now. It's created now. So what is that? So wait for the deployment. I'll go for my VM. I will select this VM and backup and site recovery, right? And select disaster recovery. Enable enable replication. So here it is creating the target, correct? So if I go back to my recovery service vault, I can see the second one. And here, here, once I enable on the replication is complete, search for the recovery service vault, region 2, you may need to refresh protected items, replicated items. Once it comes here, it should show healthy, right? Okay, so what I'll do, enable the replication is happening, guys, right? Here the machine has to come. Meantime, I'll go with my prod RSV. If you see on the protected, this is a lengthy one, but we have to wait. So here, check the virtual machine showing. This is region 2, protected initial state. So, okay. Yeah. But always ensure that, guys, the moment you have RSV, right, go to something called as properties, and there is something called as backup configuration. Here you have to see the encrypted or not. If you have to see the monitoring settings, you have to ensure that built-in or whatever it is enabled, and you have something called as soft delete. Ensure that you will disable this. Otherwise, what happens, guys? You cannot delete your RSV for 14 days. Encryption settings, you have encryption setting, you can enable encryption settings. Uh, Always soft delete, it should be disabled if you're doing for lab purpose. But if you're doing for the on real time, you should enable the soft delete. Soft delete will make sure that if you delete also, you can recover from the thing. It will not delete, guys. It will ever not delete anything. So enable replication. Okay, here we have something called as replication. So we've already done this, right? So site recovery, enable replication. I've already enabled it. The replication is happening, right? Yes. This is a lengthy process. I have not tried this lab anytime, guys. That's why, otherwise I could have done easily, but it's okay. Replicated items. Giving time to come up. See, here it has to come up, guys, right? So that I will just check it out because even I've not tried that anytime. We don't have lab also for that. It's okay. Let me try that. Only that I have not tried in thing. I will anyway, I'll just help you with that. So, but you got the idea, right? So now once you enable, it will come up here. But make sure that, for example, if I want to delete all the things, let's say I'll go to on premises, I'll go to in order to delete that, I'll go to my programs and features. I'll uninstall the recovery service vault. I'll uninstall recovery service vault. And once I uninstall, because you cannot remove that until unless you uninstall and remove that. So meantime, I'll go to my Azure, go to site recovery, go to this, go to your backup items, and I'll go to the agent. I'll go back here, view the details, and there's an option called delete. Delete that and give the name of the computer like this. And I'll say that others lab is done for on-prem environment. Say that delete. Now what is happening? It is getting deleted. And if you refresh here, this should go off. Once it goes off, you can refresh here. This will go off. Can you see? Gone. For Azure, what you do, you go back to your view details on the first machine and you have to stop the machine, stop the backup and delete the backup. Backup name is on-prem VM. So I'll say other. Then stop the backup. If you want to move the resource from one RG to other RG, you have to stop the backup in case if you are planning for. Second machine also, I'll just go and stop backup. Otherwise, you cannot delete the RSV. Okay. So this is how you have to take care on the thing. So if you go to the backup items, it will become 0 now because I'm stopping that. So here, even for your file share, you have to stop the backup. Otherwise, you cannot delete the RSV. See here, one machine is already went off. Second machine is going on. If you go to the backup items, it's going on. It's going to delete that. Gone. If you refresh here, that is also gone. 0. Right? Then you have option to delete. Otherwise, you cannot delete the RSV. It throws a error. So see, these are the active and storage account associated with the keyword. So I'll go to the backup storage, backup here, protected servers, Azure storage, because it is already unregistered it because I've already tagged that, right? File share. So I'll say decommissioned. It's done. Deleted. Once I do that, I'll go to it's deleted, right? So I'll just delete this. If one is not there, it will not get deleted. Now you can see deleting, right? So always first thing is you have to go to the properties, make sure that the soft delete is disabled. If not, soft delete is not deleted, not unticked, then you cannot delete the recovery service vault for 14 days. So here nothing is there. I should delete automatically because I don't have any infra with the secondary RSV, correct? So I'm deleting my storage account, which I've used it for, right? Okay. So now the last module, a small module here. backup and restore. So that's called your monitoring. So how we're going to monitor in Azure. So any doubt so far, guys? So we have taken Azure BIOS and backup. Then I'm not going to use the backup server because I don't have any VMware or Hyper-V, but I've taken as a Mars agent. I've installed on the Azure machine. I've installed in the local machine also, right? Give me 1 minute. Okay. So when it comes to monitoring, this is half an hour topic. When it comes to monitoring, what it does, guys. So when it comes to monitoring, basically what it does, it is a service which meets all your requirement. Like you can monitor your infrastructure regardless where it is, correct? How it is possible? Azure monitoring has two key elements. What are those? We'll see that. So how are you going to configure your monitor and how you're going to improve your incident response with alerting on Azure? And how are you going to use your log analytics workspace? So only these three are available. So when it comes to monitoring, we will see how the key monitoring works. What are the components of Azure monitoring? And what is its metrics? These are the two only, guys, when it comes to monitoring. These are the two key elements when it comes to your monitoring, metrics and logs. And how are you going to take care of the data types, active logs, events? So when it comes to monitoring, these are the capabilities. When it comes to monitoring, how are you going to monitor? How are you going to achieve, right? So when it comes to monitoring and visualize, guys, when it comes to monitor and visualize, so what this metric does is, metrics are numerical values available for Azure resource helping you to understand the health, operations, and performance of your system. So you can explore the metrics. Queries and analyze the logs. That means logs are active logs, diagnostic logs, and telemetry for monitoring solutions. Analytic queries helps you with the troubleshooting and visualization. You can use the monitoring as well. I mean, so you can query the logs. See, there is one thing you can query the logs. For example, my machine, when it is replicated last time from on-premise to Azure, so it will query from the log analytics workspace. That is also possible. And set up an alert actions. What kind of actions you're going to take? For example, my virtual machine is down. So what action you're going to take care? That's what you're going to create an alert for that particular action. So you'll create an alert, you'll set up an alert, and for that alert, if there is no actions, take action automatically, right? So core monitoring for Azure services, collect metrics, active logs, and diagnostic logs, used for time critical alerts and notification. So when it comes to monitoring, as I mentioned, there are two key elements. One is your metrics and one is your logs. And now they've added trays and changes, right? So I'm not defining any hierarchy here. If I go at the tenant level, right, on the data source, it will go to the platform, it will monitor your application, it will monitor your resources, right? And when it comes to monitoring, you can have your application monitoring tool, you can have your guest OS monitoring, Azure resource monitoring, Azure subscription monitoring, and tenant monitoring. So these are the monitoring. That means each service will have the monitoring. So see, when it comes to Azure resources, right, it will tell you how your storage account is performing, right? How your load balancer is performing, how many failures are there, how you can set up the scaling, those things it will come, right? But the moment you have all these, right, application level monitoring, your operating system level monitoring, your what you can do all this, you can visualize the data from creating a dashboard, pushing it to your Power BI. You can visualize the data, you can analyze the data, you can respond to the alert, you can integrate with your log analytics workspace, or even you can integrate with your event hubs, you can integrate with the logic apps, or import to the external, right? So see, basically you can do whatever it wants. Like for example, you can respond to the status, you can for the application, container, or VM, right? You can visualize and keep it in the Power BI for your pushing the data to Power BI. You can analyze the data by using your log analytics metrics. I want to know what happened where, right? And you can respond to the alerts and action and auto scaling. So this is what the components of your monitoring. That means it's very important when it comes to monitoring, right? So metrics and logs, where I can see the metrics, guys. The moment I get into my subscription, you can see here the subscription. You can see the active logs. What happened in your subscription, right? What is done? So you can time span. I can say custom. I can say let's say I can say August applied. And see here 3 months data. You can just visualize the active log. You can visualize what is happened, right? See what Azure monitoring is doing, guys. It is helping me to monitor and visualize the metrics. It is helping me to query, right? And it is helping me to configure the alerts and take action accordingly, correct? So you can see here, this is what happened in my subscription. Everything you can see, everything, what is happened, when it is happened, who has done, what is done, everything, it will be there here. And basically what you do, you can export the active logs. You can keep it in the storage, or you can download the CSV file, because the data will be available only for 3 months, guys. So what our organization does is they will keep the files in the log analytics workspace, or they will download and they'll keep it in the storage. So storage will cost around per GB basis, right? So when it comes to metrics, you have seen the logs, but when it comes to metrics, you'll go to the virtual machine example. You'll go here. You have something called as metrics. You'll see that metrics, how the metrics is happening, what is available. So it gives you the overall figure here, right? If you go back to overview, you can see the monitoring here, and you can see the metrics here. This is all metrics. How my system is performing, what is the CPU, what is the disk byte. For example, let's say I want to create an alert here. So what is the alert here? So the alert is, I'm going to create, let's say you have a VM. Let's say you have a VM. Now this VM, I want to create an alert. So the alert name is, let's say the alert is, if someone powered off the machine. I'm creating alert. Let's say if someone power off my VM, let's say some critical application is running here. Now, if you powered off the machine, the application is out of business, correct? Do you agree with that, guys? So now, what exactly I have to do? I'll create an alert and I'll send a notification to my team. Notification to the team. Team, a voice, message, mail, message, mail, it will go. So let's say if no action, then go for an automation. Take action automatically with the help of logic apps, function apps, webhook, automation, runbook. So many are there. You have to create. And what Azure does is, the moment you select the automation, so they will create a service principal account with contributor role, because it has to trigger, right? So Azure will do a creation the moment you enable the automation runbook or anything. It will create a service principal account with the contributor role. And this contributor, what it does is, he will go and start the machine. Or start the VM using VM. It will start the VM, right? And this is how the this is how the monitoring works. But you have to create an idea here. Okay, if something goes wrong, what I have to do, right? That's what the alert comes in picture. So metrics and alert logs you have already seen. The metrics are numerical value that describe the some aspect of system at point in time. Correct? They are lightweight and capable of supporting real-time scenarios. So you can see the metrics, you can see the logs. So logs basically contain different of data in the records. Telemetry events, traces, performance data can be combined to analytics. So what you do, you have seen the active log, correct? That active log can be stored with Loganalytics workspace also. That I will show you how you can use that Loganalytics workspace. And active logs, you have seen that active logs, right? Send data to Loganalytics workspace for advanced search and alerts. So whatever the active logs you got on the subscription, right? You can send the data to Loganalytics for the further search, and you can use your portal, your PowerShell, CLI, and REST APIs. Stream information to Event Hub as well, and archive data to storage account, because 3 months data you have to keep archiving so that you will not miss the. And you can analyze the data using Power BI. If you are good at Power BI, you can analyze the data with the Power BI as well. And these are the active logs you might have seen in the subscription, right? I've shown that active log, right? You can download, you can keep it in the Loganalytics workspace, and you can filter by management group, subscription time span, and event severity, right? And what has happened since so many days. If I go back to my subscription, you might have seen that active logs, because I'm going for complete active log, entire, and you can see the subscription selected is subscription is severity is all, error critical all, lifespan is you can customize for 3 months. For example, July, it will not come up. Can you see here? The start time cannot be more than 90 days. So that you have to keep in mind and apply. It will come all these items for 3 months. You can export the active logs, keep it in your storage account, or you can go to your Loganalytics workspace as well. So once you have done this, how you're going to respond to the alert? As I mentioned, how I'm going to respond to my incident, whatever happened in incident, right? For example, this is an incident. If someone is power of the machine, that is an incident for me. But how are you going to take action, right? So manage alerts, action groups, and this one. So they have given the screenshot here. What I do is I'll go to the virtual machine. So first thing is there's something called as automation. So guys, I'm going for, in order to create an alert, I need to have this automation account. So automation can be your runbook, function app, webbook, automation runbook. So I'm using automation runbook here. I'll just create an account here. So what I do, first I'll create an automation account. And let's say I'm going to go for this, my automation account. And next, public access. So I'll create this automation data. Because I need to attach this automation account to the action group. That's why I'm just creating it. So what I'm doing, guys, I'm doing the last part first because I have to associate to the here, right? If no action, I have to add it to the action group. If I go back here, this is what I'm doing it now, right? So this is what I'm doing, guys. So I'll show you that. It's a simple thing. They have taken a screenshot. So now I'll go to the resources. So I'll say that create a runbook. My runbook. Save. Created. I'll import a runbook. So I'll import from the runbook. So let's say I want to start the VM. Okay. So I'll import the runbook. Azure Virtual Machine, I have to select. So I will invoke like my runbook, my VM runbook. So what I'm doing, guys, if someone power off the machine, I want to start using when trigger occurs, I want to make sure that it will start the machine automatically, right? So here I need to publish it. I'll publish this runbook. I'll show you that how I'm doing, what I'm doing. Okay. So I'm publishing this runbook, right? Now I publish this runbook, right? So this I will delete it because I don't want to this because I've imported the template. So what I did is I've imported the template and I published the template here. Now I'll go back to my VM and I'll go to something called as either you can go here or you can search it for Azure Monitor. You can go for Azure Monitor. There you can create an alert. Monitor. You can create an alert here. Metrics alerts, right? You can create an alert here. Here also you can do it, right? You can create an alert here or you can go directly to the machine. Go to the monitoring and create an alert. So I'll select the alert. What kind of alert you want? Let's say if example, power off. If someone powered off my virtual machine. What action you're going to take? So I have to create an action group here. My admins, okay? And who are the notification? I will send through my SMS, let's say new skill. So I'll select email, let's say Guru Cloud that at outlook.com and phone number. I can select phone number 91. I can say 9535369797. And voice message is only for US people, guys. Azure mobile app notification, you can give that as well. And if no action from my team, further action I have to take, right? So I have to take either runbook, function, event, ITSM, where I want to trigger a ticket, or I want to create a logic app. Through logic app, it has to start the machine. I've selected runbook, right? In this case, I've selected runbook. You can use Azure function, you can use event hub, you can use ITSM, you can use logic app, you can use your secure and webhook. So I'll use my runbook. Now I have to select where is my runbook. Restart the machine. Where is my subscription? Where is my runbook? That's why I've created runbook automatically first. Okay. And I will allow that. So if someone power off the machine, you have to. So can you see, guys? Contributor role assigned, right? And click on review and create. If no action from my team, I want automation. The moment I do and create, I will get a message. I got a SMS, guys. You are in my admin's team, right? And I'll get a mail also, right? I'll get a mail also. Can you see here? You have been added to management. This is the prod, my admins. Can you see the time? 10:30, 10:52, right? So now I've created this something called as a rule, correct? Now what I'll do is, if someone is powered off the machine, so let's say I'll go to the monitoring, I'll see view. So this is what critical error and actions. You can open the query, you can do whatever here itself. But what I do is I'll go to the virtual machine. I'll go to the first machine. So I'll just copy this and let me stop the machine. So once you stop the machine, what is the option you're planning to do, guys? It has to trigger automatically and it has to go. So the moment I stop the machine, this running will go to the deallocated state. So it will go to the deallocated state. You can see here, refresh. It will go to the deallocated state and it will stop state. But I don't want that stop state. Let it comes up. So it will go as a deallocate state. Can you see here? If someone stop the machine, right? But I don't want this. So what action I'm going to take? I'll go to my automation account. I'll go to my account. I'll go to the run book, right? And I'll go to my VM runbook, which I've created. So I'll start that. So what is the resource group name? prod-rg, correct? And VM name is this. And select subscription. You must enter the value of this field. Okay. So what is the field value? VM name, or let's say prod-rg. So I've started the VM. I've started whatever the resource group I have. So it has to start it. Meantime, I will see whether it is starting or not. First time you have to start that. So it is, let's see. Can you see guys? It's running, right? If I refresh, did I start machine manually? No. I've used my runbook and runbook is doing that. Once it starts, it will give a message that this has been taken care. But how it is starting, guys? Here, subscription. If you go to the subscription, access control management, you have something called as a service account which will create, correct? So roles, if you see here roles, or check access, you can see here contributor. If you see here, this one, it is, for example, if you go back here, see, the VM is started, guys. You got it? So now, if you go back here on the runbook overview, you can see my automation runbook. This is the one. Can you see here? And they have added a contributor role, and this is service principal. So because if I need someone to start the machine, right? As a contributor, he has the rights to start the machine. So whenever you see identify not found, that means that particular resource is deleted, right? So that you have to keep in mind. So now I can't go directly all the time, and I don't need to start the machine manually, correct? So how I do, I'll go back to a automation account. I'll create a scheduler here. Let's say schedule. So I want to schedule it because I don't want to go manually. I don't want to start the machine, right? Through the automation. My schedule. And every starts from, let's say, 11:29. Okay. So I'll just say that 11:15. Okay. And let's say you can't search it. You have to go based on the timings reoccurring every 1 hour and create it. So I've added the schedule that it will schedule it. So that it will go and schedule it, right? And if you go back here, this is my job. Jobs are running. And this is my PowerShell where it is schedule. I've added the schedule. Every time. So it will go and reoccur every time. and this is getting deprecated, guys. This service is getting deprecated, but it's okay. Just for lab purpose, I've just shown this will go off in certain time. So it will go off. I think recommend to migrate to log analytics workspace. With the requirement of log analytics agent, following dependent services will retire on. It is recommended to migrate to supported services for the reminder. So some of the things are retired. Okay, fine. So now once you trigger, it's already triggered the machine and it is saved your time, right? And it is running. Based on the alert, I've triggered it, right? And this is alert rules. You might have seen alert rules combine the resource to be monitored, signal or data for the source and the conditions. You can enable out-of-box alerts in the Azure portal. So you can go to the monitoring and you can see all the alerts, right? That's what we have seen in the monitoring. You can see all the alerts. You can see all these alerts here, fired or whatever happens in the condition. This is what the notification action group we have created, right? So either I've used this one to trigger the alert to take an action automatically, right? So the moment some action is triggered, when the alert is triggered, I have to take action automation. So I've used automation runbook to set the fire, simple. And now last small topic, which is log analytics workspace. This is very, very big service, guys. Very big service. Why? Because when I use my log analytics workspace, again, it is a big repository. Again, it is a big repository on the cloud. That means now this is the top level resource for your monitoring purpose. That is called log analytics workspace. We call it as LAW, log. Now, a top level resources for your monitoring purpose. For top level resource for backup purpose is recovery service vault, correct? But when it comes to monitoring, you have something called as log analytics workspace. So this is a big repository on cloud where it is capable of handling huge amount of logs and there is no limits. Limits how much logs you can store in that. That means it is a big repository, guys. It doesn't have any problem to store. Either it will store your Azure or you can bring your logs from your on-premises. That means it can be associated with Azure. It can be associated with the Azure resources. It can be associated with the GCP AWS. It can be associated with the storage account. It can be associated with your subscription. It can be associated with your on-prem, right? So let's say on-prem storage account, Azure storage, subscription. It can associate with your GCP, AWS. It can associate with your, let's say, Azure. So what it does, you can have this as a connection. You can associate with your log analytics workspace like this. You can associate and all the logs will be again, will store in a repository. Repository. right? So I can bring the logs any box, right? It can be your VM agent installed, it can be your running on GCP, it can be your Azure subscription, Azure monitoring, whatever. I can bring the logs from a SCOM server also. For example, it's an operation management. In turn, you can collect the logs from your multiple OS on your on-premises, guys, multiple operating system on the on-premises that can be pushed to your log analytics workspace. Again, you can bring the logs from, let's say, storage account. You can bring the offline files from the storage account. You can bring the logs from the Azure resources. Everything is stored in the repository. Once you have the data stored in the repository, for example, all the data, all the logs stores in the repository. Right? So once it stores, log will have all the information. For example, when a slight changes in the, for example, some ping fail happens or anything happens, right? All the informations will be presented in the repository, right? All you have to do is creatively run the queries and get whatever information you require. That means I have to find out, example, when my data center from on-premises replicated last time. You run that query, it will fetch the information from the repository. Make sense? It will dig into the logs. You will come to know, okay, it was 12 a.m. last night, right? Example. So you will go ahead and create all the dashboard using query and keep that permanently. And you can say, okay, show all the list of available machines right now. It will show all the machines which is available in Azure or on premises if it is you have installed in the on premises, right? So you can query like this: show me the list of machines that add an event inside called error in the operating system between so and so timings. So what it does, it will show all the VMs with an error message as error, right? That is also, don't you think this is giving complete visibility? That is how log works, right? All you have to do is you have to associate the data resources. Data resources can be from Azure, can be from your on-prem, can be anything, right? So you will just associate the data resources to your log analytics workspace. So it's a very beautiful concept, but it is a paid one. It is not a free, it is a paid one, guys. So log analytics, create a log analytics, query log analytics, and store the log analytics workspace. So whenever you go to the monitoring of any logs, you can see something called as logs, right? A service that helps you to collect and analyze the data generated by the resources in your cloud and on-premises environments. Write logs, interactive analysis with the results. Example including assessing system updates, troubleshooting operational incident. It will fetch the data. And the moment you create a workspace, that's called log analytics workspace. A workspace is Azure resource container where the data is collected, aggregated, analyzed, and presented. This is my top level resources, right? So you have multiple workspace per Azure subscription. You can have access to more than one workspace. Workspace provides a large geographic location, data isolation, and the scope level. Scope is nothing but what, guys? Scope is nothing but your subscription, right? And I'll create so that I can show how it works. So the moment I go to log analytics workspace, very beautiful concept. You can see created. Sorry, I'll just go with this. Let's say prod-log. And you can associate the tag. The moment you create the top level resource called your log analytics workspace, so once you create, guys, you can associate with your log analytics workspace. See, for example, if I go to my Entra ID, the diagnostic settings. And diagnostic settings. Audit logs, sign-in logs. You want sign-in logs, audit logs, whatever the logs you want, right? It will go to my Loganalytics workspace. What is the Loganalytics space? I just created it, right? My Active Directory logs or my AD logs. I can add that to my. Why it is not coming up? Because I have not created it. Okay. So Loganalytics workspace, fraud logs. Okay. So you can add the virtual machine, you can have your system log, storage log, system operations center, right? You can have your virtual machine. So you can say my VM row, VM, and all the windows, resources, add the resources. I can say prod RG. I can say VMs. I can add that, review and collect the data, add the data source. You can performance counter, Windows active logs, critical application warning information. You can add that audit failure, all this. You can add the destination monitoring. So I can add it to my Loganalytics workspace and create it. So I'm collecting the data logs, collection logs rule to my Loganalytics workspace. So basically, it is a big repository where you can bring not only your Azure, you can bring the logs from anywhere in this world. For example, the moment I go get into the Loganalytics workspace, what I'll do, I'll go with the agent. Now I'll create my agent here. So for example, let's say my machine. So this is the agent, guys. Can you see? This is my VM, which I've clicked on monitoring, correct? Now I'll go for logs here. I can fetch the logs. But what I do is I'll download to my machine. Take an example. I want to download to my machine, the local machine, guys. Let's say you will take the agent to your on-premises environment and you're going to install the agent in your on-premises environment. You're going to install in the on-premises. You can say call it Loganalytics, connect to your system operations, connect to your Loganalytics, right? So the moment it asks for the workspace ID and key, I have the workspace ID here and the key is this one. Nothing required, guys. Nothing else required. Commercial, US government, China. So I'm gonna add this. So now what I'm doing is management group server. Why this is asking? Management group ID. So news group. Okay, so why it is not happening is because I don't want my this thing. I don't want SCOM server because I don't know that, right? So that's why it is asking. So I'm just, if you know the management server for your SCOM server, then you have to add that. So I don't have that. So I'm installing only for my machine, normal machine. Guys, another 10 minutes, it will be done. We can just use it our time for turn on your camera and I'll ask you questions. So now I've installed the agent, right? So here I have to get one machine here because once it is connected, I'll see this here. So let's wait. So where I can see, I can go to my control panel. I can see something called as Microsoft Monitoring Agent. And you can see here, it's connected. This is my scan server. This is my connected. So you can see here, this is the workspace ID, right? Lens with what? CEB, right? CEB. So ends with CEB, correct? Now it is collected. So once I refresh my screen, so I have to get data sources. Azure Virtual Machine I've already added, right? So you can see heartbeat. You can see, guys. So this is my VM, which is my machine. And if you see on the second, this is my local machine, guys. This is my local machine. That's called Windows machine. This is my local machine. And I can run the query, any query I can run, but heartbeat is just to check whether it's connected or not. And you can run the query, but the query is based on, guys, the query, whatever you do in Azure, Login Workspace queries will be based on Kusto query language. So if you want to run the language, you should know Kusto query language. Then you can run the query. Even I don't know Kusto query language because I'm not from developer background, but here you have ready-made templates, you can use it. Any queries, you can use it here. For example, Azure resources, you have all the things, audit, application. You can just do the error or whatever. You can plan and do here. What query you want, which is related to just a query virtual machines, agent that provide all events for run the query. So that will run the query, all the events in the past hour. It will give you all the things. Can you see, guys? Everything it gives, right? All the system logs. If you want, you can run the query. That will give you all the system logs. If it is there or not, if it's not there, it will not give you. Like that, you can just check. For example, list all IS logs. So the moment you run the query, it gives you all the information which is required for you, right? So this is much better because you can bring any data sources anywhere in this world. Not only Azure, guys. If it is available, it gives you the information, right? And you can bring the storage logs here. You can attach the storage logs. You can add everything here. You can manage the alert. You can run this. Everything you can do it here itself. Even for example, if I go back to my automation runbook, if I want to update my machine, so there's something called as update management. This is deprecated. So they have given for go to update management. And if you want to update your machine, right, you can manage it. So I think I have not gone through this. This is a new concept. But if you want to update, you'll use the update and you will associate with your Login workspace. So assign a policy. When you're assigning a policy, configurator system, okay, secure recurring updates. So assign a policy and you will associate with your Login workspace. So Login workspace is a better because you can run the query using the Kister query language, quickly retrieve and consolidate data, repository, save the log search, automatically create an alert, export the data to Power BI to Excel. This is what we've done. So I've selected my run heartbeat. If you see, right, this is the event. Whenever occurs, you can just see that. This all, guys, on the module, last module. So any doubt so far, let me know, guys. Give me 1 minute. Guys, any doubt with regards to this module? So here what you do, you create a template for Poison, you create an alert, action group, alert, and create an alert. So any doubt so far? Guys? So Manoj, Suraj, Atul, can you turn on the camera? If you feel that you're ready for interview questions, we can discuss. If you're planning for examination, please go to Azure AZ104 exam. So let's say go to here, you can book the examination. It will be 140 minutes and you can take a practice questions. Take a practice questions. And this will be for example, you want to create alerts based on the metrics and active logs. The solution must meet the following requirements. Set a limit how many times an alert notification is sent. Call an Azure functions when an alert is triggered. Configure the alert to have a severity of warning when triggered. So what you do, guys, here, which two types should you create? So I think an action group, right? And a secure webhook. Check the answer. So I think the action group is correct and alert is also correct. But checkbook or webhook, it comes under the action group, correct? So like this, the questions you have to select. You have a virtual machine runs in Linux. The virtual machine must have a custom application that output log data in JSON format. You need to log in a workspace. What is that? So logs in the log analytic workspace.
Second one, the custom script.
The Azure Monitor Agent for Linux. Okay. So you have to practice this. Meantime, you can go and you utilize your sandbox environment, exam preparation videos, right? I'm going to share as we discussed in the morning, right? So, and you can book an examination here, India, 4,800 rupees plus service tax, almost 5,700 rupees, 5,000 to 5,700, right? So what you can do, So what we can do, I will get you for 4,800, including, for example, if you want to schedule, right? So unavailable. So you'll get around 5,700 rupees. So I'll get you for 4,800 rupees because I have a contacts. You can get it, right? Once you book the examination, make sure that you'll have 140 minutes and write the examination, right? And before that, you have go through this learn.microsoft.com and you can go with the module 1, module 2, module 3, module 4, like that. You have to read it again so that it will be useful for you, right? And okay, so can you turn on your camera if you're prepared for interview or you need some time for preparation? And one of the new skill people will do interview. Or what you learned so far? Have you understood the topics? Is there any topic deviated or it was very tough to understand? Can anyone say? Manoj, Suraj, Atul?
Yeah, Pratik. So, is there any video for all the lab?
Lab, no video. Video you'll
No.
get it from YouTube, right?
Okay. So,
Uh,
is there any previous batch that time you captured all the labs
capture all the labs means like
on the training that time? You performed all the labs the one end to end.
no.
Okay.
That is nowhere because that is this is the limited, right?
Yeah. Right.
See, one lab it is. I don't think so. It will take 2 hours or 1 hour. It will take a lot of time. Correct.
Yeah. Correct.
But you
Because
can
some lab is
track.
heavy
You
and
can
it will take a time near about 45 minutes or 1 hour.
yeah. No. Each lab, see, each
Yeah.
lab, if you go through your here, for example, I want to manage, this will take 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
If I want to go for manage subscription, this will take 30 minutes, 1 hour. Again, if it goes to 30 minutes, 1.5 hour, 1 hour, 1.5 hour, like 2.2 hours, right? And if you go here, total 3 hours. 3 hours, this will go 3.5, 4 hours, again 4 hours, 5 hours, almost 5 hours, 6 hours, like this, right? So almost 1.5 days required to complete all modules. But I've shown all the modules. If you gone through the videos, right?
Yeah.
Site recovery, because that is a lengthy process that I have to even nobody will show that lengthy one. But you can practice that. If in case if you want anytime, contact me so that I can help you, right?
Yeah. Sure, Pratik.
So what about the interview? You don't require interview to do because they said to do interview for you guys. Are you prepared or no? Not prepared yet. You want some more time, or you're good to go with the interview later? Not with me because I thought like complete today. It's not part of the course curriculum, but I just want to discuss on the questions, right? You have any questions to be answered? Or should I ask the questions to you guys? Will you answer the questions? Are you confident to answer the questions? Atul, Suraj.
No.
Okay, you need time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because many team members are not available.
Why?
Phone
What
available.
happened actually for them?
Don't know.
Okay, let me stop the recording. Thanks for joining this call. I'm stopping the recording and all the very best for your examination.
Yeah. Thanks.